Hey, welcome back, and in this episode we're going to take a look at making chicken and chorizo jambalaya. This is one of my most favourite dishes and something that always receives positive feedback, so let's dive in. We need a couple of chicken breasts, we need a chorizo ring. I normally use around half of one of these, 250 grams of long grain rice, a garlic clove, a red pepper, an onion, a tin of chopped tomatoes, and some Cajun seasoning. We also need around 350 mils of chicken stock. So I've got a Knorr stock cube ready to go in there. And we need a tablespoon of olive oil. So one thing to note is that with the Cajun seasoning and the chorizo ring, depending on which one you buy, the spice level can vary quite significantly. So it might be a bit of trial and error for you to get the spice level to how you like it. Once you find one that you like, I'd recommend sticking with that. As I said, I've tried different Cajun seasonings, I've tried different chorizo rings, and it's wildly varied between sort of mild to really spicy. So these two work quite well. So it doesn't matter which Cajun seasoning brand you buy. I've tried all different ones. It's just the one I happen to have in the cupboard at the moment, but it is quite a nice one. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the chicken breast. So we need to get this in the pan first, and I'm going to cut up 2 chicken breasts, and this is going to make enough for around 3 to 4 people. So I'm going to take a chicken breast, and the first thing I'm going to do is just cut off some of these scraggly bits here. I don't really like those, so I'm just going to trim it up a little bit. So what we want to do is cut these into reasonable slices. Again, it's personal preference, but I tend to like to make sure that they are reasonable sort of bite-sized chunks. And you want them all to be around the same size so they cook evenly. So once we've got our chicken ready, we're going to pop this into a pan with some olive oil. So really important thing is after you've handled any raw meat, particularly chicken, make sure you wash your hands before you touch anything else. So I've got a frying pan here on a relatively high heat because what we want to do now is pop a little bit of olive oil in, and we don't want too much. I've made it before where I've accidentally put a little bit too much olive oil in. All we're trying to do at this stage is get a nice sort of sear on the chicken, and we're actually going to take this out of the pan after about 5 minutes. So it's not going to be fully cooked at that point, but it is going to go back into the pan again later. So let's get the chicken, and once that's high enough, we're going to add the chicken to the pan, and that's what you want to hear, a nice sizzle. You don't want to be putting this into a cold pan. So you want a nice high heat, and once that's in the pan, we're going to add a pinch of salt. It's really important to season it as you go along. And I like to add a little bit of black pepper as well. And again, just stir that around. So all we're trying to do at the moment is just get a nice sear on that chicken. We're not looking to cook it entirely at this stage. So what I like to do is sort of turn over the pieces that aren't yet seared. And if you're not too good at timing, then make sure you set a timer. We're looking for about 5 minutes at the most. So I'm just going to turn all of these pieces over, make sure they get a nice colour on them. Don't want anything to stick to the pan, so just make sure that you're moving things around. So you can see here we're now starting to get a little bit of a golden colour on the chicken, which is what we want. I'm just going to turn it up again slightly just to keep that sear going. What we don't want to do is end up where the pan's not hot enough and they're actually just boiling instead. We want to ensure that we keep a nice sear going. And we're just getting a nice golden colour, here we go, on the chicken here. This is the sort of thing that we're looking for, just for a few minutes. Okay, those are looking really, really good. So a nice golden colour on most of them now. Not fully cooked yet, and we don't want to dry them out. So we're going to take them out of the pan now. So I've got a bowl here, and what I've done is just put a couple of pieces of kitchen roll in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to just tip out the chicken into there and put those to one side. So the kitchen roll will just absorb some of that oil so that they're not sitting entirely in the oil the entire time. And then we will come back to these. So I'm just going to put these to one side. And then what we want to do is we want to keep the pan on. And the next thing we're going to do is prepare the onion. So I've taken the top off of the onion. I'm just going to cut down the center and then just going to remove the outer layers. So the next thing I'm going to do is just cut this fairly finely. Okay, so now with the onion cut up, we're going to move that into the pan with a bit more olive oil. So now that we have the onion cut up, I'm going to just add a little bit more olive oil back to the pan. It's perfectly fine to use the same pan. The beauty of this dish is that we can prepare everything all in here. So as that warms up, I'm going to add in the onion, and I'm also going to add a pinch of salt. So add that now. So all we're looking to do is get a nice colour on these and start to see these soften. So again, around 3 to 5 minutes. So while the onion is cooking, I'm going to prepare the red pepper. So we're just going to cut down the middle. And then I'm just going to take out the centre white part. So we're just giving the onion a quick stir through to make sure that they don't burn. And then with the red pepper, what we want to do is cut these into moderate slices. And then turn them this way. Oh, there's a pit there. And then what we want to do is just cut these into small chunks around that size. So I'm going to do the same with this side. So with the red pepper prepared, I'm going to pop those into a bowl, just so we've got some room here to prepare the chorizo. So again, I usually use around half of one of these. This is actually a bit smaller than some of the ones that I purchased, so we'll see how we go. But normally half is enough. So I'm just going to take that part there, put the rest back in the packet for another time. And then what I like to do with this is that when you're eating this dish, you don't really want a big chunk of chorizo, although it is very delicious. So what I tend to do is just sort of cut down the chorizo long ways like this. Okay, and then lay them both like so. And then what I tend to do is sort of cut down the middle again here, sort of long ways. And then placing them back together like this, you can then just cut these into bite-sized chunks. Again, not too big, not too small. And that's the chorizo prepared. So I'm going to pop that into another small bowl. So with those three things ready to go, we've got the chopped tomatoes. I'm going to open that ready. It's all about preparation with this dish. So the last thing to do is prepare our garlic. So we just need the one clove. I'm going to pop these things back in the fridge, and I'm also going to fill up my jug with 350 ml of boiling water ready to make our chicken stock. So with 350 ml of boiling water, I'm going to pop in my chicken stock cube and let that dissolve. And then I'm also just going to take the skin off of this garlic. And then with the garlic, I'm actually going to use a garlic press, but if you don't have one, you can just chop this up to your desire. So I'm going to put that to one side ready and dissolve this stock cube. So now with everything ready, we're going to go back over to the hob and finish it off. So you can see the onions have got a nice colour on them now. So this only takes around 3 to 5 minutes, so you don't want to be leaving this for too long. But once the onions have got a nice bit of colour to them, the next stage would be to take our red pepper and add that to the pan. We're also going to add our chorizo. And we're also going to add around 1 to 2 tablespoons of your Cajun seasoning, and that is to your preferred taste. So I would say around 1 tablespoon for those who are not too sure about spice, and 2 tablespoons for those that like it. But again, it would really depend on which Cajun seasoning you buy. Again, 1 tablespoon for one brand could be really spicy, and 1 tablespoon of another could be really mild. So you just have to do a bit of trial and error with this. But once you put the seasoning that you wish in, you then give this a good stir around and make sure everything's coated in that Cajun seasoning, because this is one of the core flavours of the dish. Just want to make sure that none of the seasoning is just sitting on the bottom of the pan. You want to make sure that that's all stirred in to the onions and the pepper. And at this stage, we're also then going to take our garlic. So again, I'm using a garlic press, so I'm just going to press that through and then just cut that off there. And then that just leaves the skin inside. But again, you could also cut that down in the normal manner. So I'm just going to stir that through. So that just needs a few minutes. I'm going to make sure that the chicken stock is ready to go. And again, you just want to make sure that you keep stirring it, make sure it doesn't catch on the bottom of the pan, make sure nothing's burning, but you do want to make sure that you cook out those spices. Okay, that's smelling really good, it's looking really nice. So that's now ready for the next stage, which is to add the chopped tomatoes. We're going to add our chicken stock, which is now dissolved. We're going to add our rice. And we're going to add back the chicken from earlier. So I'm just going to remove the paper towel, and then we can just tip that in. And then we're just going to give everything a good mix to make sure this is all combined. Again, you want this on a relatively high heat, because what we want to do now is ensure that we bring this to the boil, and then we're going to turn it down and let it simmer. So just make sure all of those flavours are combined. And that juice is going to make sure that the chicken stays nice and soft and moist. So just want to make sure that those are nicely covered. Once everything is nicely combined and the chicken is under the sauce, we then want to bring it to the boil, as you can see it is now. And I'm going to turn it down a little to around, on my cooker, which is an induction hob, around level 8, so just a little bit lower than the average boil level. You do want to make sure that it's hot enough, otherwise the rice won't cook in time. So it does still need to be hot, but you don't want it boiling away the entire time either, because you'll probably run out of liquid. So we now need to pop a lid on the pan. And we're going to leave that for around 25 to 30 minutes. Again, it does depend on what level you have it on and how well your rice cooks. So typically I'll leave it for around 25 minutes, but check it around 20-25 minutes. If the rice is looking cooked and there's not a lot of liquid left, then it's about ready. But equally, if the rice is still a little bit hard, you may need to leave it a bit longer. You may need to add a little bit of boiling water back to it. So we're going to leave that for around 25 minutes, and we're going to come back and see how it's doing. So it's been about 15 minutes, and I'm just going to take the lid off and just check how it's doing. So you just want to make sure that nothing's catching along the bottom. So sometimes you just want to give it a good stir around, and this is a good opportunity for you to check whether you've perhaps got the the level right on the cooker. So you don't want it to be so hot that you've no longer got any liquid left, but equally you want to make sure that the rice is getting cooked. So just stir that through. It's smelling really, really good now. It's coming together quite nicely. So I'm happy that there's enough liquid in there. So I'm going to pop the lid back on for another 10-15 minutes. And again, you want to, if there is not enough liquid, you may need to add a little bit of boiling water and possibly turn down your oven. If there's a lot of liquid and the rice isn't filling up like mine is now, expanding, then you may want to increase the heat. So it's now been the 25 minutes. I've took the lid off and given it a good stir through. I can see that all the liquid has been absorbed and everything is cooked nicely. So I'm now going to leave it for around 5-10 minutes. It's often way too hot to eat straight away, and I find that the flavors come out a lot better if you give it 5-10 minutes just to let everything settle, and then we'll plate it up. So after giving it 10 minutes or so to cool down in the pan, I've now dished up a portion here. I've got some salt and pepper, which I tend to like to add to the dish at the end. And I've also got some Parmesan cheese, if that's something that you enjoy. I find that goes really well with this dish. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit over the top there. And it's now time for the taste test. So let's give it a go. And make sure we get some of the chicken and the chorizo there. Bit of pepper. That is absolutely gorgeous. Full of flavour. Really, really tasty. And as I said before, always goes down really, really well. So there we have it, Chicken Chorizo Jambalaya. Please do give it a go and comment down below if you do and let me know how you got on. If you've got any ideas for recipes that you'd like to see me cook next, then please comment those down below as well and I'll give those a go. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. In the meantime, keep cooking and I'll see you in the next one.